Thursday, May 1st. And I think this is like part 16 of preparing for my book release. This is probably the last one I'm going to make, I guess. And then release my book either today or I might go through it again really quickly, search for some edits that I might have to do. You know, the it's versus it's, there, which I've already done, but I just want to double check everything. I've kind of been through this when I did this as individual songbooks, and every time I would upload it to Amazon, each one of these 54 songbooks I would upload to Amazon individually, and every time I read it later, I would notice something, so I had to go back, edit it, and then re-upload it, and then I would notice something. I don't want to do that as much this time, so I've been through this book like a lot, and it's over 1,000 pages of lyrics plus all the prefaces I spoke about. It's a lot of stuff to edit, and I got total respect for people who do this for a living, editors of other people's work. It's not easy, man. It is not easy to keep your focus for 100 pages at a time or whatever they do. Besides the flow and making sure everything makes sense and fact checking everything, I'm sure there's plenty of times where I contradict myself and I just have logical fallacies, and these are things I'm more concerned with that stuff because yeah, I call myself a happy idiot as an artist because I'm I'm going to explore anything that pops in my head through art. All the weird shit that happened to me since 2020, especially. I explored it through music. I explored it through screenplays, and I don't think I would have been in this position if I didn't rely on that type of art. Like all the weird shit that I've experienced since late 2019 into 2020 up to now, really, like I'm a different person, way different than I was back then, which I spoke about a lot already. But if I didn't have these creative outlets, I don't know how things would have turned out for me. Like there was just too much weird shit going on in my life. And yeah, I've kind of been like that since I was a teenager. I turned to music. I don't go see a therapist. I don't go see anything. I don't get prescription drugs. I don't do recreational drugs. My way of dealing with weird bullshit is music, movies, writing, and enjoying art, other people's art. You know, I try to do my best to support independent art and stuff like that. And hopefully I can continue to do that in the future at least, and maybe even see some of my stuff come into life so other people can create it or not create it, be inspired by some of the stuff I've done. That's the coolest thing. Like, yeah, I want to make money. I want to make money and make a career of this so I can keep doing this. But the ability to actually see your stuff and have it affect other people's lives is pretty cool. Not that I've ever had that, but that's kind of a part of it, I guess. And today's video is going to be pretty short. I went for like 2 hours yesterday, and it was just too much, man. And I just kind of went overboard. I wanted to show all the books that kind of had some part of my creative DNA. All the books I listed yesterday, some of them I couldn't really speak about because I don't remember them that well. The Kabbalion, I don't know what the hell was in that book, really. I can't explain Hermeticism and all that stuff, but I know it's kind of like the power of your mind and almost like an inspirational type of look at controlling your own reality. There's a great Bad Religion lyric. You create your own reality and leave mine to me. And eventually, I want to get that tattooed like across here. You create your own reality. because I feel like that's a main theme for me in my music and screenplays. When other people try to write your narrative for you, I was always a person who was non confrontational and just let people do that because I wasn't even aware of it most of the time. I write about manipulative people all the time within my book, and the person I was for most of my life, I had no idea what that shit was. People who manipulate other people and do all this shit. Narcissistic people and people who play mind games with people and power of suggestion. I've heard these terms and shit, but I never knew that people actually implemented them in nefarious ways and shit. So it's a lesson you learn in life. Maybe people learn it in their 20s. I didn't learn it until like 2019, 2020. And I guess I'm happy I finally did. But yeah, I want to get that tattooed because it's like the thesis statement that I kind of want to pass on to people. In my book, if there was like one thesis statement and all the scramble brain shit that I've written, it's you create your own reality, leave mine to me. I don't want to say don't tread on me or freedom isn't free because those are kind of militaristic slogans. Even if I kind of agree with that don't tread on me type of consciousness approach, like don't fuck with other people's heads because it's not good for anybody. Why do you want to waste your energy? Why do you want to waste all that negative energy on someone else's life? I don't understand it. It's a waste of life for all parties involved, whether you want to be a part of it or not. So, yeah, if I had one thesis statement, it would be that Bad Religion lyric you create your own reality, leave mine to me. Because so many people try to write your narrative for you, whether family, coworkers, random fucking strangers, anybody, man. I'm sure I'm not the only one who's experienced this shit. So it's like, don't let other people write your narrative, write your own fucking story how you want to write it. And if you're not able to, well, at least you fucking tried. At least you can say other people aren't in control of my path in life because that's important. That's very important. Nobody should be affecting your path in life at any age. So that's a main theme for me. Um, I go more scatterbrained than this in my book about some of these messages, but I guess that's the hypothetical poet. I kind of, in my afterword, I kind of explore, well, what the fuck am I a poet or not? And I don't want to like read from it because I want people to actually buy the book and read this stuff. But I kind of still don't really know, and maybe I don't care at this point. Whatever term you want to use, like it doesn't really matter. It's not a title like in a corporate setting where you get a new title every few years to make you feel better. So I don't care. The only reason I titled my book "The Hypothetical Poet" was because the other title I wanted to use was already taken, "The Reluctant Poet." That was my first choice because I don't want to be a poet. I don't consider myself a poet. Still, I don't because I don't know what that even means really. Poet can mean so many different things, and like I said, everyone's a poet. If you've ever had any kind of existential thought or thought about your life or death, you're a poet. And like me, you probably never wanted to share those thoughts with people. The white coats might come and take you away and shit, or they'll put you on some pharmaceutical drug because you're not supposed to explore these thoughts. But whatever. It's terminology like that is stupid. But I wanted to, from the beginning of my book, I have a quote or a song lyric from Melanie, this songwriter, folk singer from the 60s. And I think she has a song called I Am Not a Poet. And that's how I start my book with a lyric from her because I thought that was a cool approach. Like, especially because nobody knows who the fuck I am. Why are people reading my book to begin with? And I want to present that I'm not some. I'm not saying all poets are pretentious people or anything. I don't, but it's no fault of poets. It's no fault on them. It's just that there's a stereotypical lazy way of approaching that. If somebody says poet, you think of some. I said this probably 3 times now. You think of some tormented person and woe is me and all these heartbreak romantic songs. I don't have like any songs like that. I explore like politics and religion and human condition, and I explore topics like that. But I have so many influences from punk rock to hip hop to just folk music and heavy metal stuff. And I've said this already so many times as well that I don't want to limit myself on any kind of expression, whether it's completely insane thoughts or just, I don't know, just wacky nonsense that makes no sense to me. So it's not going to make sense to anybody else. But there's also a notion that, yeah, maybe everyone's going to interpret my lyrics differently. Anything I say on in these videos, people want to interpret how they want to interpret it. It's a reason why at first I really wasn't going to make videos at all. Just like I didn't think I was going to write a book. I didn't think I would spend the last 2+ weeks making videos every day like this because I'm not an accomplished public speaker and I don't worry about really restricting my thoughts that much. I made some edits where it was more just because I was clearing my throat and I don't know, maybe some of my thoughts were just too jumbled even for me. And yeah, I edited myself a little bit, but most of the videos I made were just like this. If you go back to my first video in this series, it's like a half an hour exactly like this of just me talking off the top of my head. And I kind of like it better because I eventually it became like a therapy session almost because I realized no one's looking at this or watching my videos. Nobody is on my Substack or my Medium pages. Like marketing is something I'm not even going to think about. I'm going to release my book today or this week over the next few days if I'm not happy with it. And yeah, I said I will cancel the internet for like a month, but I don't know. I'm still doing other stuff. Like I'm doing my Anatomy of a Song series tomorrow. I have a song called Jekyll and Hyde, which I just picked earlier today. And then Saturday, I'm going to cover Erasure, Respect, Little Respect, that 80s song. I'm trying to still develop that part of my YouTube channel, so I don't think I'll cancel the internet, but maybe I'll try to do other things during the daytime because it's been kind of, I don't want to sound whiny because I know people have way harder jobs than me, but also I'm not getting paid for any of this shit. So I don't think people would do all the stuff I've done over the last 5 years without making a fucking penny. So I understand people say that all the time, people in radio and television and actors. Yeah, people doing construction and garbage sanitation workers and police and firefighters. Yeah, no shit, they have a way tougher job. First responders, and I just feel like there's plenty of need in society for art, music, writing, screenwriting. You know, where would human civilization have gotten to at this point if there wasn't all that stuff? You know, I'm not saying all art is productive, but if there wasn't that progression of satire and learning how to deal with people's egos and philosophy is an art form. I criticize religion, but religion is an art form. Like you go into any church and it's going to be beautiful art everywhere. So yeah, art is an essential part of any society, in my opinion. And if you restrict it, it's going to hurt every level of society. These are my opinions. Yeah, I get it. Censorship is a way more complicated topic that I won't talk about anymore because I've already spoken about it to death. Point. And yeah, it's been a weird journey, but I'm sure people have way more odd experiences than I've been through. I even said with my series, The Madman's Daily Unequivocal Comedy, that eventually, this is my pipe dream, but it's not really a pipe dream. I'm very confident in this because I know I've written good screenplays for this series that have a large demographic market. And I already had the first season pretty much written, 12 episodes, how I see it. But if a production company only wants to make it 10 episodes, 7 episodes, I don't know. I'm always up to hear other people's perspectives on things. So who knows where season one will go? But I have plenty of material for season one. And there is a theme throughout the whole season that kind of connects the episodes together, even if it's a different story, a different setting, a different time period in every episode. There's kind of like a connected universe. I have outlines or at least ideas for 24 more episodes for season two and season three. And I said at that point, if I get to that point, I would open it up to any writer in the world to just send in scripts. Like I said, people have way more interesting lives than me. Way they've led more. I always say life and lives. Like I always confuse that. People have led way more interesting of a life than I have, and they probably have way better stories with crazier plot lines and characters. And maybe somebody like in Kazakhstan or fucking Turkey or Israel or fucking Australia, maybe they can't get their story produced. I would accept any kind of story, and yeah, it would probably take a team of people going through scripts. And I don't know how the Twilight Zone did it. Basically, I was wondering how they did it. If they just open it up to any writer, or even a show like Black Mirror, I think it's the same writers, but maybe they accept stuff from different writers if something really hits them. I don't know. So I want the Madman's Daily Unequivocal Comedy. I would write the first three seasons ideally, and then at that point, I would just accept other scripts from anyone in the world who wants to get their story out there. And I think that's a cool way to do it, man. Because yeah, I feel like I don't have a lot of opportunity at this point in my life, but there's probably people in other parts of the world with like zero opportunity to even have conversations like this. And yeah, that would be kind of cool to connect with other writers like that, where they can get their stories and thoughts out through the series that I created. That would be kind of a even cooler way of doing it. So yeah, I want that. I want that connectedness, even though I'm terrible at networking. I'm not good at that shit, which is why I don't want anything to do with any of the other parts of the creative process. I just write the stories and put the plots and the characters into some framework that's easily understood, and then my job is done at that point. Because all that other stuff is full of so much political stuff that I just don't want to deal with. It's just too much shit. But yeah, it's one of those things. If you're not a part of that industry from an early age, then you're probably not going to know what the hell to do in circles like that. Like, yeah, I don't know what the hell to do. Networking, social media networking. I got no clue about this shit, man. And yeah, I'm at 30 minutes. I don't want to talk for much longer. I'm just thinking of a good way to end this, really. Like I spoke about most of the things I wanted to speak about in this bookend episode. I think this is like over 15 or 16 days that I've done a video every day like this, and I took a couple days off when I was doing my music stuff. But yeah, it's not easy. All the content creators that I thanked in my book, I thanked a lot of people from YouTube, Spotify, and other podcasts that kind of helped me edit my book and write my book, because I think a lot of people, when they're working, they need something in the background. Or every morning, I need to like listen to a podcast, a music podcast or something, just to. I don't need to, but that kind of helps me wake up and establish my focus and what I want to do during the day. So yeah, it's important to, like I said, yeah, you need art in your life. Somebody said when the pandemic was going on in the beginning, they were like, "What's more important, sports or music or sports or art?" Like, I don't know. It's a tough one for me. You know, sports is a big part of my life, but in terms of where I want to go in a career, of course, it's art. I'm not going to be a defenseman for the Flyers or a kicker for the Eagles, a kick returner. Like I don't really see that as a 43-year-old. I'm gonna go try out for the Eagles like Vince Papali. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen for me. But yeah, it's just in a society. Hopefully, you can have both if the resources are there. Because maybe art's a little bit easier than sports because you can create art with anything. You don't need all the commercial aspect of professional athletics and all that stuff. But that's the side of the art business that I don't know about, the commercial side of stuff. And I don't think it's that complicated, really. I just never been involved with it. I never was a part of any guild or any union, and I'm not opposed to it. I just don't know how to really get into it. I've never been, I never even tried to in my 30s. I had two jobs, and I was like, well, I have two jobs, and I have an income, two incomes. I might as well just stick with this. And my music and my art was just a hobby. It was a big part of my life, even when I was working, but not like it is now. At least I said this a couple months ago. Like, if I didn't get fired from my job, wrongfully terminated from my job in 2021, this process would have probably taken me 10 to 15 years. Because instead of working every day, I would have only been able to work maybe on the weekends and at nighttime, I guess. I wouldn't have had the luxury, even though I've lived on only my retirement money. I saved up money since 2011, and the plan was not to use it in my 40s, but I was kind of forced to do that. If I wasn't wrongfully terminated, I would have had to find a different way to approach this, and maybe I wouldn't have been so passionate and what's the word? So like my sole focus was just to do this shit. Like I was Daniel Plainview and There Will Be Blood. I don't want to be that type of character where your work is the only thing that directs your focus in life. But that's how I am. Like I'm not complaining about it. That's how I decided to deal with my all the fucked up shit that happened to me. I decided to deal with it like this. I devoted my time and energy to invest in myself. because I saw how people treated me and how shit went down. And I told myself, well, I'm not going to work at another company that does that to people. I'm not going to work for other people who control my narrative or who try to control my narrative, who try to take my name from me. I'm not going to work for people. I'm not going to work for another company that tries to do that shit. So I invested in myself. Is there any return on my investment? Hell no. I said I made $0. Like, I probably lost money actually. Like I've put stuff on eBay and Amazon, and I've tried to do advertising campaigns. And I didn't waste a lot of money because I knew it was stupid. But it was one of those things where you get so excited in the moment, and you're like, "Oh, I'm going to sell so many copies," and yeah, it's stupid. But at this point, a lot of the shit I've done is stupid, but it's a learning process. I just look at my original lyrics. Just speaking of my writing, forget about the business side of things because I'm never going to be good at that. I said I never like saying never, and I don't. But the business side of artistic creation and shit like that, I don't even think I want to be good at that because it seems like a dirty, shady place to be. The DIY mentality is everything, but it's not easy to develop like that. If you're DIY, how do you get people to your work? The distribution and the publishing, there's so much of an advantage when other people have your back, an agent, a publisher. And I'm not shitting on that process. I would love to do that. Make money for other people. I've said it many times. I would love to make money for other people and make money for myself. I don't think it's a bad business model. I just don't know how to get started in that territory. I don't think the entertainment business is completely shady and fucked up or anything. Not less or more than any other business. But you hear stories about, artists being kind of just viewed as commodities, and people don't really care about your artistic output or your creative whatever. They just care about making money off of you. And that's understandable. If I was an agent and that's how I made my money, then I'd be the same fucking way. Like, I don't, this isn't insulting those people, but ideally, an artist wants to do it like in a DIY style. So you're not under pressure and you don't feel censored or there's not gatekeepers in your way. Ideally, every artist would probably love that instead of making millions and millions and millions, you make enough to survive and you have the control. You create your own reality. Again, that's everything. You write your own narrative. So other people trying to dictate your life path do not exist in your world. That's the ideal life of not just an artist, just people in general. And am I there? No, I'm not at that point. Um, I'm a better person mentally, physically, spiritually, even, but I'm not at that point where I have the resources to create my artistic output and create my artistic direction. I'm so far away from that point. I hope this book is my starting, the spark to get me to that, at least on the path towards that goal, because that's the ultimate goal. I want to make music, whether I'm actually making the music or I'm selling my songs to other people, and hopefully, they like it. They can interpret it in their own style. But these are the things that'll hopefully happen next. If these are scary things for me to deal with, like just in my head, well, it was scary to write this book in the first place. And I probably said it already that Yeah, I'm proud that I did this. Like the fact that I wrote a book comprising the last 20 years of my fucking life, and I have close to 500 songs probably. I have to do a count because I think it is close to 500 songs. Yeah, that's something to be proud of, but is it going to pay your bills or anything? If you're a baseball player, you hit 400, you have like 50 home runs and all these great metrics, whatever statistics, but you don't make any money doing it, would you still do it? I don't know. Do you love the game that much? I know football players want to. You got to sacrifice your body, your knees, your elbows, your sports hernias, your stingers. Are you going to do that for free? I don't fucking think so. Like, rightfully so. You should get paid for the work you do. And it's no different for artists, man. Like, whether it took me, I'm not being dishonest at all. This 5 year process that I've been on, if I was still working in this time, it would have taken me 10 to 15 years easily. So I did it in half the time, and I don't think it affects the the output at all because I learned how to kind of not rush things, let things marinate. Eventually, I did, yeah. Eventually, I learned that you can't just rush all this stuff out of your head. You have to give it time, like a painting. You're going to go back and look at it, and you'll probably hate it at some point, and you'll have to turn it into something else, which I did numerous times. There's not one of my 500 songs, whatever it is, close to 500. There's not one song that I wrote as a first draft and then it just stayed that way. Like, not even close. I probably had to go through songs at least 10 to 15 times, and I'm like, I don't like that lyric. I don't like this. I don't, and it's still gonna change. Doing my anatomy of a song series, every time I try to turn a song into a real composition using my acoustic, I'm either like adding bridges or changing lyrics or making little changes like that. So these poems in my book, which are songs, I'm sure they'll change minimally in the future as well. When I read some of the early album ideas, I'm like, wow, I was a totally different person back then. But of course, you're not going to stay the same person throughout your whole life. And the same with your artwork. If Kurt Cobain was still alive, if Jimi Hendrix was still alive, Jim Morrison, all those people that died in the 27 Club, all those people, Bradley Noel, it sucks. Like there's a little part of my book about that. How um, just imagine what kind of music John Lennon would have made if he was still around. Him and Paul McCartney would still be writing songs like right now, and George Harrison. And it's just cool. They would have developed into different artists and wrote different things. Kurt Cobain might be making like ambient music right now, be like a Zen master. Like who fucking knows, man? Just all the collaborations. Like Stevie Wonder could be doing an album with Jimi Hendrix right now. Like in some parallel timeline, that's probably happening. So yeah, it's cool to keep growing as an artist. And if I had to give myself advice like 20 years ago when I kind of started these albums, I would have said just share the fucking shit with people. Don't be a pussy, dude. Share your songs with other people. Share your stuff with other people, and don't have a fucking ego about it. If you have an ego and all that shit, it's a sign of weakness that you think your own your personal bias or your slant artistically is more important than the art itself. If the muse is leading you somewhere, wherever that is, I often I always say I think my muse kind of fucks with me sometimes and leads me down areas I don't want to go. But even in those moments, I think sometimes those, whatever I create, eventually turn into something. And maybe I won't like it in a few months or a year from now if I go back. But I don't know. Art is like that. Maybe you won't like your shit in a year, but it doesn't mean don't share it with people. That's what I would have told myself 20 years ago. Because maybe I would have already had some albums and stuff. My first album, Songs from the Rhine, 2006 or 7, I wrote those songs mostly. Maybe it would have been like a musical on Broadway and shit. I don't fucking know. But whether it's because I was too much of a pussy, I was too sheepish, I was too afraid that my stuff wasn't good. I'm still afraid of that. But at this point, I'm in my 40s, so what the fuck do I have to lose at this point? So now it's just share fucking everything. I'm the completely different person than I was in my 20s and 30s, where yeah, I would get drunk or stoned and play my songs for people. I wasn't in the frame of mind where I actually wanted to do this professionally as a career because it still seems so foreign to me. I don't know what the fuck that means, like because I don't know people in the industry. It's hard for me to have a pattern of how I can be successful. I don't know who to model my career after, I guess. But I do love the DIY stuff, so maybe like even Fugazi and people like that. But it's different because they have an audience, and yeah, they had to go and play live shows and get an audience, which I'm not gonna do that stuff because I'm not a performer like that. So it's a different mentality a little bit for me. All right, the last thing I mentioned the 27 Club, and when I was writing that part of my book about how I wish some of these artists weren't, whether they were drug addicts or alcoholics, whatever their vice was. I wish they would have not given into those things. Like, yeah, I could have became. Yeah, I fucked around with like pot and alcohol for a lot of my life, off and on. Not a daily habit or anything. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was never at the point where I would consider myself like a drug addict or an alcoholic. The only thing I was really drug addicted to was cigarettes, nicotine, and coffee. If you really want to look at it, I was more addicted to the legal drugs, cigarettes and caffeine. That was my daily drug. But yeah, I'm off of all that shit now for the last 5, 6 years. I haven't had a drip of alcohol. I haven't had a cigarette. Caffeine, I've been off of caffeine for like 2 or 3 years, besides like the little bit I get. So I've changed my mentality because I want to be as healthy as possible. And well, that gets me to the last point because I feel like comedians don't get mentioned as poets. If my book's about poetry, like when people think of poets, they think of musicians or just people reciting free verse, even like rappers more than anything, I guess. Because that's like the ultimate free verse if you can just freestyle off the top of your head, which I don't understand how people can do that. That's like the most difficult art form is just rapping off the top of your head. So I wanted to just mention some of the comedians because I went through all my albums, I went through authors and books, but the comedians that kind of got me to open new doors in my consciousness. George Carlin, probably number one. Mitch Hedberg, Bill Burr, Dave Chappelle, Sarah Silverman, Stephen Wright. Just his delivery is so funny. Stephen Wright, Jim Gaffigan, Dave Attell, Bill Hicks has really classic lines. He's kind of more just like a poet more than anyone, I think. Bill Hicks stuff. Norm Macdonald, also great delivery. And I mentioned Paul Provenza in my show because in my book, Paul Provenza. I have a couple quotes from him. He had a great show called The Green Room, which went for like 2 years, I think, 2 seasons, where he would just get a bunch of comedians and and just have conversations about shit. And it was a great show. I wish it would have kept going for a long time. And yeah, that's how I wanted to end this because I feel like comedians don't get that same credit, or they're not looked at as poets because I don't know. It's people don't look at humor as the same type of art form almost. And yeah, I think that's faulty. It's very faulty because humor's been around forever and it's just as important as music or anything else. Humor, satire, like I talked about Jonathan Swift yesterday and some other books that were very satirical. And yeah, you gotta laugh at yourself, man. You have to laugh at yourself, laugh at your heritage, laugh at your sexuality, laugh at laugh at the state of the world and just the human condition in general. If you don't laugh at that shit, or if people are trying to tell you, well, you laughed at that, well, what's wrong with you? You find that funny? That's offensive. Like, if you let that creep into your consciousness, because I've done it, I've been affected like that, where I'm too afraid of people's judgments when it comes to comedy or sex or language. And all these things are connected because comedians offer the best exploration of controversial topics like that. And they're poets. Every comedian I mention now is a poet. They're kind of like more on the prophet side. Dave Chappelle, George Carlin, you listen to their stuff about politics. I don't know if they're like telling the future, but they're looking to the past to show you where we're headed as a civilization, like a philosopher, like a poet does, like a musician does, or a filmmaker. So I don't think comedians get enough credit as artists or poets. Um, well, artists in general, I guess. I don't think people equate comedians to like the power of language that they do implement because sometimes they'll throw in some dirty jokes and then it's like, oh, this is so absurd and raunchy and not good for the youth. And yeah, it gets weird like that. Like comedy's been a huge part of my life, just like movies, just like books, just like music, stand-up comedy, and specifically stand-up comedians and sketch comedy. Like I grew up with Saturday Night Live, like the Adam Sandler years, and his comedy CDs, and all that stuff's very influential because it teaches you don't let people censor you. You're going to explore dirty thoughts and stuff like that, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I guess that's the end. I'm at like an hour, so I have to finish this. But I'll probably upload my book today or the next few days, and yeah, I want to look through it again just to for cosmetic purposes and stuff. But I'm pretty confident I could probably edit it a final couple edits and be done with it maybe today or tomorrow. And as soon as it's on Amazon, I'll leave a link. If anyone ever watches these videos, they could go check it out. And yeah, I think I'll cut it right there because if you, if anyone ever goes through this whole series, you're probably really sick of my voice at this fucking point.